Why is it important to create a resource list when you're creating your project? It's going to help you identify who's doing what, because Project will display the resources that are assigned to each task. It's also going to help you identify potential resource shortages before you miss a deadline. As well, it will also identify underutilized resources so that you can add them to different tasks to help shorten your work schedule. Now, I've got up in front of me Project Resources Exercise number 1, and if you'd like to open up that to follow along, please do. I've taken the liberty of typing in our resources so that we spend time understanding what's going on with the different types of resources that we have rather than you watching me type them in. So I've used my resource sheet to initially create my resource list. And as a reminder, I got that by clicking on View and selecting the resource sheet. Originally, this sheet is blank, and you just type the resource name in each one of these different rows, and you identify the different type of work that this particular resource is going to perform. As a reminder, you have work, you have materials, and you have costs. Now, as I clicked on that particular resource, it opened up the resource information screen for me. And in this particular screen, you can identify additional information about that particular resource. In my material resource, I want to identify perhaps the code for that particular web server and any material labels that I would like to help identify that particular resource with. If I click on the cost resource, I also get a cost resource information screen coming up with the same available fields to fill in. For a work resource, not only do I have the original information that I had, but I also can identify the availability for that particular resource. Now, my resources don't necessarily have to be identified as a title, which is what I have here. It's more of a function that I'm looking at. I could put in a resource name. Joe Smith is the web designer that I'm going to actually be working with in this particular environment. So it's completely up to you if you want to identify an individual or just the task that you would like to have performed. More importantly, you can identify when this particular resource is available. So you can, in the resource availability section, pull the drop-down list, have your calendar available to you, and you select when this person's availability is. So let's say this particular web designer is only available for just around a week, and I'm going to identify the dates. This way, when I go to assign that particular individual to a task, Project is going to identify whether or not it meets the availability criteria that I have here. So this is very important, especially if people are taking vacations and other available non-working times. Another item you may want to work with here is the budget resource. A budget resource can be assigned as a budgeted resource only to a project summary task, and this gives you the opportunity to specify how the works or costs will be allocated to the project. So if you wanted to create a budget resource task resource, you could do that and assign a certain dollar value to that so you could compare whether or not your actual resources were going to meet your budget. So you can see here that you can identify when this particular individual will be available to work on your project. Now you can also change the working time for this individual by clicking on the Change Working Time screen. And this is how you're going to add your vacation for different individuals if your project extends over the vacation period within your organization. So here you're looking at your standard calendar for your web designer. You've identified that he will be available between the 13th of March and on. And you just want to identify that he's going to take a vacation beginning the 15th of March through to the 18th of March. This will ensure that this particular web designer is not available for scheduling under these circumstances. If you have other exceptions that you need to include within this particular person's working time schedule, you can just add them in under the available rows that you see here. When you're finished, you click OK. And that is recorded within that particular resource's assignment. So as you can see, you can go through each individual resource and personalize their working availability for you on this particular project. Next, we're going to see how we can assign resources to different tasks.